This is not a routine development. What unfolded inside the U.S. House of Representatives has pushed American democracy into one of its most perilous moments in modern history. Within the past 24 hours, a razor-thin vote changed the political landscape. By a margin so narrow it stunned even veteran lawmakers, the House approved articles of impeachment against Donald Trump, not by a landslide, not by a sweeping consensus, but by a fractured chamber split almost straight down the middle. One decision, one lawmaker, one vote. That is the distance now separating constitutional stability from deep institutional turmoil. What makes this moment extraordinary is not simply that impeachment passed. It is the manner in which it happened. There was no wave of bipartisan unity. There was no overwhelming mandate. Instead, there was hesitation, tension, and a chamber struggling to hold itself together while making a choice that cannot be undone. This was not symbolic theater. This was the activation of a constitutional mechanism that now operates independently of emotion, intention, or political spin. Once the gavel fell, events began moving on their own. Within minutes, Donald Trump responded exactly as many inside his circle expected. He rejected the vote. He labeled it a hoax. He called it a witch hunt. He described it as illegitimate. Most importantly, he made something unmistakably clear. He will not resign. Not now, not later, not under any circumstances. This was not merely defiance. It was a strategic declaration. Trump is signaling that he views impeachment not as a legal process, but as political warfare. And wars alter behavior. They change incentives. They reshape how rules are followed. Perhaps even more revealing than Trump's reaction was what did not happen. Republican leadership did not immediately rush to microphones. There were no coordinated statements, no emergency press briefings, no unified defense. In Washington, silence during crisis is never accidental. Silence is calculation. Silence means decisions are being delayed until power centers determine which outcome becomes unavoidable. Once impeachment clears the House, momentum accelerates. The next 72 hours are not filler. They are a compression chamber. Evidence is being assembled. Legal teams are locking strategies. Private discussions are already shaping public outcomes. This moment is often compared to Watergate. That comparison fails. This is not 1974. This is not 2019. This is not 2021. Trump enters this crisis with tools Richard Nixon never possessed. He commands a mass movement. He communicates instantly with tens of millions of supporters. He has fused his personal identity to grievance and persecution. The impeachment vote did not close a chapter. It opened a more dangerous one. From this point forward, the system must demonstrate whether it still has the capacity to restrain a president who rejects its authority. If you are waiting for Republican leaders to clearly abandon Trump or fully embrace him, you may be waiting longer than expected. That delay is not indecision. It is survival strategy. Power does not rush forward in moments like this. It retreats into closed rooms. That is exactly what is happening. Public loyalty has always been easy. Private loyalty is far more complicated. The Republican Party is now trapped between two fears: fear of Trump and fear of surviving Trump. Nixon never had direct access to a mass audience. Trump does. Social media collapses institutional distance. It allows Trump to frame every constitutional step as persecution. It transforms accountability into grievance. That shift fundamentally weakens traditional enforcement mechanisms. Pressure that once eroded support now hardens it. Every investigation becomes proof of conspiracy. Every accusation becomes validation. Republican leaders understand this reality. They are not asking whether Trump is legally exposed. They are asking whether opposing him is politically survivable, because the risk is no longer simply losing a primary. The risk is detonating a civil war inside the party. This is why the next phase begins with math. Senate math, electoral math, donor math. Power is being measured in margins, not morality. Once impeachment moves to the Senate, the question changes. It is no longer, did Trump break the law? It becomes, does the Constitution still possess the force to remove a president who refuses to accept its authority? And that is the real battlefield. There are only a few constitutional pathways. None are clean, none are safe. The first pathway is Senate conviction. Impeachment triggers a trial. It does not remove. Removal requires 67 senators. That means at least 16 Republicans must vote to convict. History offers little encouragement. Party loyalty has already outweighed constitutional obligation twice in Trump's previous impeachment trials. The second pathway is the 25th Amendment, Section 4. On paper, it appears decisive. The vice president and a majority of the cabinet declare the president unable to serve. Power transfers instantly, but the president can contest. Congress must then vote. Two-thirds of both chambers must sustain removal. That threshold is even higher than impeachment, and it requires Trump's own appointees to act against him. In practical terms, it is nearly impossible, which leaves the third pathway. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the Insurrection Clause. It disqualifies individuals who engaged in insurrection from holding office. It does not require a Senate trial. It does not require cabinet cooperation. States have attempted to invoke it. The Supreme Court halted those efforts over enforcement authority, not validity. If Congress invokes Section 3 directly, that ambiguity disappears. This is the nuclear option. Clean in text, explosive in reality. It would move the crisis from political to constitutional warfare. This is why it terrifies both parties. Behind this constitutional struggle lies another war, the battle for the future of the Republican Party. For years, the GOP has lived with a contradiction. Trump delivered power, but at the cost of transforming the party into a personality cult. Many Republicans believed they could manage that contradiction indefinitely. The impeachment vote proved they cannot. The party is now split. One faction still believes in institutions, precedent, and long-term viability. The other faction sees loyalty to Trump as existential. Breaking from Trump means extinction. This divide is now public. Money is reacting. Major donor networks have gone quiet. Silence from donors is not neutral. It is a warning. Private meetings are increasing. Closed-door sessions with no staff, no records. The topic is not defense. It is contingency. What happens if evidence emerges during a Senate trial that cannot be contained? Subpoenas are already moving. Communications, text messages, financial records. If these materials surface, the narrative shifts instantly from partisan conflict to criminal exposure. This is why hesitation has turned into fear. The party sees the numbers. Tie your future to Trump and lose badly. Abandon him too soon and face revolt. There is no painless exit. The question Republicans can no longer avoid is simple. What happens when Trump becomes an anchor instead of an engine? Inside legal and political strategy rooms, 4 outcomes are being modeled repeatedly. Not speculation, not pundit fantasy. Contingency planning. Scenario 1. Trump survives. The Senate trial occurs. Fewer than 16 Republicans defect. Trump is acquitted, again. If this happens, Trump does not merely continue, he emerges strengthened. Survival becomes proof of invincibility. Every investigation becomes confirmation that the system failed. The precedent becomes devastating. A president is effectively immune as long as his party controls enough seats. Institutions remain on paper. They collapse in practice. This is how democracies erode, quietly, incrementally, through exemptions. Scenario 2. Trump falls. This requires evidence so overwhelming that partisan defenses collapse. Leaked communications, financial documentation, insider testimony, something that makes loyalty more dangerous than abandonment. If that threshold is crossed, Republican senators will not find courage, they will find self-preservation. That is how Nixon fell, not when wrongdoing was exposed, but when party leaders concluded survival required separation. Scenario 3. Constitutional crisis. Trump is convicted. Trump is removed. Trump refuses to accept the result. He declares the trial illegitimate. He claims to remain president. At that moment, enforcement becomes the question. Who enforces removal? Federal law enforcement? Secret Service? Military command? The Constitution provides authority, but authority means nothing without compliance. The nation enters uncharted territory. Scenario 4, the backroom exit. No cameras, no speeches, private negotiation. Trump resigns, avoids Senate conviction, preserves personal narrative, receives a federal pardon. This is not fantasy. This is historical precedent. Nixon resigned, Ford pardoned. The deal was never written, but it existed. Trump's attorneys understand the danger of a public Senate trial. Evidence becomes permanent. Testimony creates new exposure. Resignation narrows the battlefield. It does not save Trump. It contains damage. But Trump faces a trap. Every public escalation increases the cost of private negotiation. Every defiant post burns bridges. Eventually, the options compress into one question: political martyrdom or legal survival. This crisis does not stay inside Washington. Allies are watching. NATO leaders are quietly alarmed. Credibility is not declared, it is demonstrated. Adversaries see opportunity. Markets sense instability. Capital moves towards safety. Confidence erodes. The most dangerous consequence is structural. If Trump survives or burns the system down, the message to the world is clear. Institutions bend, strongmen prevail, accountability becomes optional. That lesson spreads. This moment is not about one presidency. It is about whether the oldest modern democracy can still enforce its own limits. The House vote is complete. The clock is running. Deals are being explored. Lines are being drawn. And one question now dominates everything. Are we witnessing the collapse of democratic restraint, or the last moment it proves it still exists?